Alrighty, welcome everybody back to another live stream here on the channel. Hopefully everyone is having a great Tuesday so far. It's been a long time actually since we've done a briefing. It's been about 8 days since we did coverage and about 11 or 12 days since we actually did a briefing. So we'll see which one is needed today. We're just going to kind of go along with it, and if we need to continue past the hour, we will. So let's see what we have here in the chat today. I'm going to start here at the top. We have Charles, we have Face, as well as Cruz, Ben, Sam, Proxy. Glad to see you guys all in here. Maury, as well as Christian, Cody, and everyone else who is in the stream who may not be chatting. And if you're just watching and not chatting again, welcome to the stream. And hopefully you're having a great Tuesday. Kaylee, also welcome to the stream. And yeah, let's go ahead and dive right on into this. Hopefully this scene is good. Had a little issues with it, but it looks like it's fine. Yeah, everything looks good to me. So, yeah. We are going to be talking about the potential for severe weather for today. We've got a slight risk from the Storm Prediction Center out there for portions of Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and even the absolute smallest sliver of Arkansas. I mean, there can't be many people inside of that slight risk for Arkansas there. The smallest sliver of Arkansas in that level 2 out of 5 for today. We'll also go over tomorrow's marginal risk for severe weather, and we'll also go over the potential for severe weather going into Thursday as well. Thankfully, Thursday's downtrended ridiculously. Tomorrow still kind of looks iffy on if we'll see severe weather, and then today's been uptrending quite a bit for the last 24 hours or so. Just yesterday morning we were at a small general thunderstorm risk, then they upgraded to a small marginal yesterday afternoon, and then they upgraded to a big marginal this morning, and then eventually they added that slight risk here about an hour and 4 minutes ago at the 3 p.m. update, which is 20Z. I gotta get used to that. I was all off on my timing earlier today on Twitter because 20Z is now 3 p.m. 18Z is now 1 p.m. Eastern. They've switched all the times on me because of that dumb savings time thing that we had. It had to be about a month ago at this point. It's just haven't been streaming a lot, so I'm not used to that time switch yet. But anyways, yeah, we have a slight risk for severe weather for today. You could see here in the yellow. Let me go ahead and change that. Let's see that GR2 screen. Yeah, right here. Need to pull that down just a smidge there. We messed with it on our last live stream, and I shouldn't have. So yeah, for today, slight risk level 2 out of 5. You can see that highlighted here in the yellow right there is that level 2 out of 5. Big old marginal level 1 out of 5 all around that. That goes all the way up here into Greencastle, Bloomington, Columbus, Indiana. And there's actually some severe weather happening out here right now. Not really anything too crazy. Pretty weak storm happening out here near Nashville in central Indiana. Really nothing too over the top. We have a previous severe storm moving through where Girl Dev is right now in west central Indiana. Just a lot of lightning, heavy rain, maybe some very small hail, 20-mile-an-hour gusty winds. No big deal there. In terms of what this slight risk is for here, we'll go to remove that. There you go. We do have a 15% chance for some large hail today. So hailstones could be up to about 1.75, 2-inch in diameter here in this yellow area. That stretches all the way from southeastern Missouri, right near the Farmington area, Ellington, right around that region, Poplar Bluff out there, southeastern Missouri, all the way through near Hopkinsville in southwest Kentucky, also close to Clarksville in northwest Tennessee, Huntington, northwest Tennessee. So pretty large, or rather pretty small area under the gun for some large hail here. It's not a very big slight risk for severe weather, but it is pretty populated here. I know this is a pretty populated area. So yeah, there's about almost 1 million people inside this relatively small slight risk for severe storms today. And the only reason why we have a slight risk is for that large hail. Tornadoes, there is quite the large 2% chance for tornadoes today, but it's a conditional day. We're not really looking at a tornado outbreak or anything like that. We're looking at 1 or 2 tornadoes, and one of which could be strong. So we could get a spin-up tornado inside of a messy cluster later tonight, and we could get a strong tornado with a discrete storm here in about 3 or 4 hours. But either way, we're looking at a tornado or 2. One could be strong. It just depends on how storms evolve later on this evening and into the overnight hours. But both threats are conditional. We could go this entire day without seeing a single tornado. We could literally have no tornadoes later today. It would not surprise me. And it also wouldn't surprise me if we have a weak tornado and a strong tornado later today. So it's really one of just those kind of 50-50-ish days where we could see a tornado. And if we do see a tornado or 2, one of which may be strong. And then on the other half, there's a chance we don't even see a single tornado. We also have the risk for 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts here across this very large brown region here. That's a much larger risk for 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gusts all the way from Lexington, all the way down through Somerset, London in Kentucky, all the way through Nashville, Murfreesboro in central Tennessee, back up towards Union City, Tennessee, up into northeastern Arkansas, southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, southern Indiana. Pretty large 5% there for damaging winds. And honestly, that 5% for damaging winds really should have been extended a little bit more north up till about central Indiana, because we did have quite a couple severes earlier this afternoon across this area. And here you could see one still ongoing, about to expire here in about 7 minutes. So that's your overall categorical risk for today. Again, a pretty big risk for just isolated damaging winds and isolated small to large hail inside that marginal risk. Can't rule out a spin-up tornado in that marginal area. There's a chance for a spin-up strong tornado or weak tornado in that level 2 risk, but the main threat is isolated large hail of 1.5 to 2 inch in diameter, as well as 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gust. And that's your main ordeal for today. Tomorrow, we do have another marginal risk for severe storms, a little bit larger here. I also do think they could expand this weird looking level 1 a little bit further north, closer to Norman, maybe even into Norman going into tomorrow. I wouldn't rule out a spin-up tornado or 2 tomorrow. They don't have a risk, but I do think we have a chance for a spin-up tornado or 2 kind of north and northwest of the DFW area for tomorrow. But the main threat will definitely end up being isolated small hail of about an inch, maybe worst case scenario if we get one of those good discrete storms going, 1.5 inch in diameter. But main threat is 60 mile an hour winds, 1 to 1.5 inch hail, and a very brief weak spin up tornado for tomorrow. And then day 3, we don't have anything yet from the Storm Prediction Center, just this ginormous 0.5 out of 5 general thunderstorm risk, just a couple lightning strikes, some isolated gusty winds, isolated small hail, nothing outlined yet. However, I do think we could see a marginal risk outlined as we go probably sometime tomorrow, they may end up issuing a day 2 marginal. And if they do, it's probably going to be down here near Bend in San Antonio. That seems to be probably the best spot. Really, two different areas. Really, this entire area in here looks like the best spot for a greater risk of damaging winds and some small hail. I don't think we'll have much of a tornado risk. I don't really see a tornado risk on day 3 here. If there is, apparently machine learning, which I do see it now, maybe along the warm front, possibly along the warm front for tomorrow, or rather not tomorrow, rather Thursday evening. So we'll have a cold front. You have a low pressure like back here. You have a cold front back here and a warm front like this. And it looks like our machine learning and some of our model runs really want to give this area the best chance for severe storms. So we'll have to watch both of those areas, just along that cold front area and then also along the warm front area for Thursday. But either way, the main risk will be 60-mile-an-hour winds, 1-inch hail, and won't rule out a spin up or maybe 2 for a tornado risk there across Arkansas if we can really get a good amount of shear along the warm front in central Arkansas on Thursday. All right, let's take a look at what our radar looks like right now here. Yeah, what's that thing called? Radar imagery? Yeah, that thing. So, yeah, just a couple of rain showers right now. None of these are very healthy. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of our ingredients here in just a second. Why do these setups look good 5+ days out and always end up being marginal or slight at best? So that is just simply what models end up doing. Sometimes we can see them uptrend or downtrend, but especially like with November kind of second season setups, they tend to downtrend a lot more often. So it's just simply because our models don't handle severe weather really well in second season. They're used to this very prime environment of a lot of moisture from the Gulf, a lot of forcing from strong troughs off the Rockies, and a good forcing mechanism also from the cold air that they bring. They're not used to these kind of mesoscale days where it's a small trough with a bit of instability and a bit of shear that brings a low-end severe threat. So they end up overdoing your threat for all hazards in second season, which is why days like December 10th, 2021 are so rare, where we actually see a significant uptrend in model runs overnight compared to a downtrend like we normally see. And then it's more often than not reverse when you go into spring and summer. Most of the time, these global models underdo instability. They underdo wind shear. And because of that, you actually see an uptrend in severe weather the day before when you go into months like March, April, and May. So it's probably more to do with the timing. Just when you're looking at those model runs. If it's in October, November, there's a better chance they downtrend than uptrend. And if it's in March, April, May, there's a better chance we see uptrends than downtrends. So it just depends on what time of year. And also, the further you go out, the more inaccuracy there's going to be. So when you get to that 5-day point, that's when there starts to be a lot more inconsistencies in the model runs. That's why the Storm Prediction Center doesn't do tornado risks, but only 2 days out. They only do tornado probabilities for the day 2 and the day 1 outlook. Not day 3, not day 4, not day 5, not day 6, not day 7, not day 8. Only day 1 and day 2. So yeah, we're going to just watch these thunderstorms starting to erupt here, but this is a great sign. If you are in the risk area today, this is exactly what you want to see. Like 5, 6 different storms here. We got one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different storms popping off here. That's great. That's a more messy mode. That's very clustered. Really, the only way we squeeze out a tornado today is if we get a completely discrete storm in the next 3 hours, or we get an embedded storm overnight closer to the 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central time frame. Hello, Lucy. Welcome to the stream. I need something, DRG. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. It's just been annoying cold weather out here We finally have rain chances, I think, tomorrow morning, but really nothing good. I mean, we knew this was going to happen. I predicted this on our winter forecast that November was going to be a relatively inactive month for anything, maybe outside of the occasional severe risk or two, but really anything. The good news is for snow lovers, I'm not going to say much because I don't want to get your hopes really up there, but keep an eye on Thanksgiving. Keep an eye on Thanksgiving. It looks like we could have a pretty good chance to end November with the snowstorm. So definitely want to watch that on our ensembles and deterministics. That's what I'm going to watch over the next few days. But it's going to take a lot of luck. I'm not going to say where or anything, but if you're in the central U.S., eastern U.S., specifically between, I'll give you a broad area that I'm watching, okay? I'll give you a broad area. I don't want to get your hopes really high, but generally it's a large area because we're a whole week and a half out. But this area in here is where I'm watching. Right in here is where I'm watching the most. Because if we can get a good Arctic blast to dive in like this, that can bring a snowstorm track right in the Midwest. But if it dives in a little bit more north, so there's like a bunch of different ones, right? There's like, yeah, half the US, Lucy, exactly. There's like one where we see this and it brings snow north of the red area. There's another one, another chance where it goes like this and it just brings it to the far northern tier of the US. And then there's another one where it just goes really far north and only like Canada gets it, and that's it. So let me show you all the uncertainties here. I'll just show you a model run. This is our ensembles going into the day before Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving Eve, if you will. And you can see there's no consistencies. There's no consistencies whatsoever here. You can see there is definitely more scenarios that show a North Dakota, Canada type event, but our deterministic Euro, which I can't show, I don't think, on this. Oh, we might be able to. It doesn't go out far enough. It's almost far enough, but it shows a snowstorm in Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, and Arkansas. And the deterministic GFS is also in agreement with that. But it's so far out. It's so far out. It all comes down to this blast of cool air, which I will say that is a lot more likely. A lot of our deterministics and our ensembles say we're going to be seeing a blast of cold air, but whether or not that's followed by a well-amplituded trough that brings a snowstorm, only time will tell for that. Only time will tell with that one. All right, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to show you guys mesoanalysis. A little bit of lightning strikes with these tiny little blips here across Missouri. Like I said, not really a big day for severe weather today. But I'll show you our HRRR here and our mesoanalysis. We'll start with the less accurate one, the HRRR here. This is the new one I haven't seen yet. You can see it takes some of these little blips and intensifies them here in the next hour, maybe two. Main threat, 60 mile-an-hour winds, 1 to 1.5 inch hail. And then as they grow more upscale towards about 6 o'clock local time, that's when we start to see a bit better chance here of maybe 1.5 to 2 inch hail, maybe 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, and possibly even a tornado. And if we can get a storm like that, that's our big question. That right there. If we do see a well-planted supercell like that in southwest Kentucky here at 7 o'clock Eastern, that will be our big threat for severe weather. 70 mile-an-hour winds, 2 inch hail, and even a strong tornado would be possible with that. If we see a supercell plant itself like that in front of the sloppy convection, you have a discrete supercell in front of this sloppy mess behind the discrete supercell. So that's our threat for today. It's a conditional threat for all hazards, And that's why I'm even a little bit surprised the SPC upgraded the hail threat, because really all threats are conditional today. If we can get one good supercell, we just might be able to see all significant hazards. Like I said, maybe a strong tornado, maybe 2-inch hail, maybe 70-mile-an-hour winds. That's your max hazards, right? Really your worst case scenario there. And then thankfully the ingredients do fade out very rapidly, so it's only about an hour window or so here between about 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern is your main window for the risk here of a tornado. And if we look here, there's pretty much no consistency on our HRRR whatsoever here. I don't know why that zoomed out so much, my word. So pretty much no consistency, right? Strong tornado, 2-inch hail, 70-mile-an-hour winds. Run before that, slop. Run before that, pretty much slop, maybe a little bit elevated hail threat. Run before that, slop. Slop, oop, a little bit better on that one actually. Kind of semi-discreet, still not really the best. And then it actually does start to get a little bit better here. Once you go to the runs earlier this morning, you could see it was a little bit more consistent. About 5 runs in a row here had that discrete storm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. About 6 runs in a row here had that discrete storm. But then they downtrended and kind of turned it into a slop fest. And now there is the newest run that kind of wants to uptrend that again into a bit more of a all-hazard significant threat. And really, there's not really a lot to say about this run. I mean, it shows the conditional potential of today, but we very easily could just go today without seeing maybe even but 1 or 2 severe storms and no tornado warnings and no tornadoes. So let's take a broad look here at what we're dealing with across the country. So this is using your observations here, your pressure and wind speeds. You can see a very weak, very weak low pressure in here. You've got southwesterlies paired with easterlies, northeasterlies, and then northwesterlies, and then southwesterlies in here. So very clearly you have a very weak surface low located right about over the St. Louis metro right now. You can see you have your warm front that's draped across this area right in here. That's what's bringing your severe weather risk across the Indianapolis area. And then you have a cold front that's draped in maybe a little bit further west here. Maybe a little bit further down like that. If we look at instability, nailed it. Gracious day, nailed that cold front right there. So the only reason why you have a chance for severe weather right now up here in Indianapolis is because of that warm front. You have like no instability, but that warm front is enough forcing to get storms to build. So not really the best environment here. We'll switch over to surface observations here. And you can kind of pick out, we're looking at 7264, not really the best environment in terms of a temperature dew point spread. That's pretty good. And your dew points are okay. Really, if we're looking at this from a winter perspective, that's actually really good, to be honest with you. That's really good from a winter perspective. Low 70s, mid 60s. Honestly, that's really good for winter in terms of winter. I should start looking at this in more of a winter setup and not necessarily spring like I'm used to. So in terms of winter, yeah, that's okay. That's not that bad. Instability for this time of year is actually impressive. We've got widespread 1,500 instability here across a very large chunk of the south central and even into the central U.S., but there's really only one area we want to pay attention to, and that's right next to that surface low, right in here. That's really the only area we want to pay attention to. Now let's switch to the 500 millibar and see if we have any forcing mechanism here. And gracious day, we have pretty much nothing. I honestly don't know how we're getting that much instability up into the central U.S. Maybe I'm missing something here, but this don't look right. So my assumption is that the reason why we're getting so much instability up here is because of that larger bowling ball trough across the western U.S. that you can't see here. You could see kind of some embedded short waves in here, and we have a bowling ball trough that's centered over southwestern California. Just if I removed my face cam, you'd be able to see it, but it's over kind of the just northwest of the LA area across southwestern California is where that bowling ball trough's located. And then you have this very messy positively tilted trough here. So very weak forcing for ascent out in this area. And then just a bit of a bowling ball trough that I guess is helping with southwesterly winds, helping to bring up some of that instability. Definitely not a great setup for severe weather by any means in the mid-levels. So we'll go back to just that normal circle there. And if we go back over to, let's see, what do I want to look at here? We could look at visible satellite. I guess we can't because it's getting dark out already. So we'll just look at effective SRH, or effective shear. So effective shear is important for upscale growth in severe storms. You really want to look at the surface to 3 kilometer, very plentiful, and then the surface to 8 kilometer, plentiful, and then the effective, which is also plentiful. So we should have no problem with upscale growth, really no problem with storms actually firing across southeastern Missouri. But the big problem is they can fire, but will they sustain? And the reason why there's big uncertainty in that is your lapse rates. You can see you have great lapse rates across south central Missouri, even down here into Texas. But where those storms are firing, if we go ahead and zoom in here, I want to do the, let's see, it's always hard to get the correct sector. There you go. Where these storms are firing is pretty good. You know, 8 lower level lapse rates, even 7.5. But once they get into that more prime sheared environment here across southern Illinois, western Kentucky, where the HRRR has that discrete supercell maintaining at, there's not a lot of lower level lapse rates. And that means there's not a lot of cooling with height. And thus, storms may not be able to sustain maturity for a long amount of time. And that's why you see like the 19Z HRRR really didn't have any sustained storms. It has this sloppy cluster of messy storms, maybe one supercell that can sustain in that slop, but really nothing much for today. And then the 20Z is kind of an outlier here with that still same slop fest, but some random sustaining classic supercell out there in southwest Kentucky. So a little skeptical on that model run. Again, also we want to look at helicity here, 0 to 1 kilometer SRH, pretty poor outside of southwest Kentucky. So where these storms are now, they are probably going to slowly grow, and I really don't expect much hazards out of them until they really get into more of southeastern Missouri, closer to the Boot Hill area here in about an hour and a half. So not a great amount of wind shear in where these storms are firing. And then also looking at your mid-levels here in the surface to 3 kilometer, same ordeal there. Very close to the same ordeal. Maybe a bit better, 0 to 3 kilometer SRH right there. So maybe a little bit better curvature in the mid-levels. Let's see if our photograph reflects on that. Not really. Not really. Really, the red I was expecting to look like this, and then the lower levels to just not even be present. So a little surprised the mid-levels look trash like that on your photograph. What if we go a bit more southwest? A little bit better. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Kind of closer to the Boot Hill. More classic photograph there. Lower level jet. I don't expect this to be, anything too insane. Actually, a little bit crazier than I thought. I really wasn't expecting anything more than about 30 knots with this. But we actually do have about 30 to 35 knots here across our main area. Yeah, we'll stay right between 30 to 35 knots. So that's actually pretty surprising. A little bit surprised about that, that lower level jet. I guess that's what's giving us our good lower level response across central Kentucky. Look at that. Crazy photograph, but no instability, so you don't have any of that other ingredients with your photograph. I do want to take a look at skew-tees out here across southeastern Missouri. That's really two things, kind of 3 things, 2 to 3 things that I'm very skeptical about for today with this skew-tee. Mid-level dryness of the atmosphere is a big thing. What that means is these storms could maybe grow a bit upscale in the lower levels, and they may be more miniature supercells, but they may not be able to mature much in the mid levels. So it's really, I'm really not impressed with this environment, to be honest with you. It's very, very, very conditional. It is very conditional. because if a storm can get through the dry mid levels, then hail is going to be a big issue. That's probably why they upgraded the hail threat, because if storms are able to thrive and actually get past the dry level, they could end up dropping up to 2-inch hail. Another thing that dry slot there is something I want to watch. And then the second thing is the lower level veering with height is not very impressive. Typically, you want to look for southerly winds, westerly winds, and then due westerly winds. So it wants to go south, west, west, or rather south, southwest, west. That's what you want to look for. So winds coming from the south like this, winds coming from the southwest like this, and then winds coming from the west like this. And it's not really veering like at all here. It's really not veering whatsoever. You're really in the very low levels, a little southwest, and then you're immediately west, 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 all the way through. So what this means is winds are pretty much coming from almost the exact same direction with height, and thus you shouldn't have that great of a mid-level response there. I'm surprised you even have that good of curvature, to be honest with you. But you can see there's no great veering, right? You don't see that elongated hodograph. It's kind of like a meh hodograph. It's more meh to it. Now, if we go in Kentucky, that should be different if we take a gracious day. Even that, you don't have great veering, but your winds are substantially stronger. So your veering isn't due southerly and then westerlies, but the wind shear is still much stronger in this area. If we take a look, 300 on the nose, 300 0 to 3 kilometer SRH. So your wind shear is very strong, but your veering still isn't the best in that case. But very, very strong lower level wind shear there. And then back out here, even 102 is pretty good. But you have weaker lower levels. You could see here. See how this only has like 1? So that's very, very, very weak. I forgot what you call those things. I forgot what these little marks are called. I forgot what they're called. My mind's blanking here. But those little markings there on your wind barb, you only have like 1 here in this area. And then if you go to this region, you have multiple ones here. So, is that the term though? Like this whole thing is your wind barb. I don't know if those individual ones are called wind barbs or not. I've forgotten. It's been a hot minute since I've talked about severe weather. I'm surprised I'm doing this good, to be honest with you. So, yeah, overall, it's a very conditional environment. Very conditional environment. I'm looking it up right now. Let's see. So, yeah, this is a wind barb, like we all know. That's a wind barb. These individual lines are called barbs. The individual lines are called barbs. You have short barbs and long barbs, and you also have combination barbs. So the wind barb is the whole thing, but barb is the individual thing. By the way, Pez, since you want to try to call me out over there. Yeah, I know what they are. I just forgot exactly what each little one was called. I know the size and the how many there are tell you the speed of the winds. I just forgot what the individual little ones were called. Definitely another thing that's helping with today is a lot of southwesterly winds. This is really good for tornadoes. Really, I mean, if these ingredients just overlapped a little better, today would have been a much higher end day. It would have been a much higher end day if these ingredients overlapped a little bit better. Your front is just a little bit too misplaced. This is your new mesoanalysis. This is your new mesoanalysis. So let's see if... So that's why some of the veerings changed whilst we were looking at this in the Boot Hill of Missouri, because we just got a new mesoanalysis, which is a new update here. So you can see your 0 to 1 kilometer SRH does go now pretty well into the Boot Hill and even into Arkansas. And your 0 to 3 is the same. Yeah, and this definitely moved more east. Really no like major changes here. The biggest change is probably just a bit better wind shear. And that's another thing. So there's the three things I want to watch here is the veering, the potential dry slot near the lower level jet, and then the large dry air in the mid levels. Those are the three main things I'm going to pay attention to. And that dry slot in the lower level jet is also what's going to contribute to your lower level lapse rates. Which, by the way, your lower level lapse rates are determined by the cooling with height in the lower levels, which is typically the 1000 to about the 850 millibar range, which you can see, if we go over here, should be, yeah, pretty poor lapse rates. Your lower levels might actually be a little bit better, because you could see how your lower levels are pretty sharp cooling there, and then it kind of warms a little bit, and then very gradual cooling. So your very lower levels might actually be okay. Yeah, about 7.5. So your lower levels are like okay, and then your mid levels might be a bit worse. A bit is an understatement in this case. You're barely at 6. You're at like 6.5. So yeah, your mid levels are a lot more poor than your lower levels. That's for sure. I also want to check clearing. I see you guys talking about that a lot, but here's the problem. If there's a lot of clearing now, that really doesn't do any good. How much clearing was there earlier in the day? So see these, that's your big issue. That's why you're, I'm surprised you even have good lower level lapse rates, but that's the reason why your mid-level lapse rates are very poor. You have this kind of very thin, it looks like, very thin sheeting of lower level clouds across southeastern Missouri and into Kentucky and southern Illinois. Of course, it gets a lot worse as you go into like up in these areas. It's a lot worse in this region. So just this little kind of thin layer, and then it does get a little bit more thick layered going eastward there. That's probably what's prevented your mid-level lapse rates from really increasing. But like I said, I'm a little surprised your lower levels even got that good, to be honest with you. You can see why your lower levels got really good back out here in Arkansas, because, you know, really once the sun came up, all those lower level clouds cleared out, and I mean, you've just been heating like crazy across this area. So no shocker why your lower level lapse rates are 8 out in this region. No surprise there. But I do want to go ahead and briefly talk about tomorrow's threat here, just to also get those in Texas caught up here. So we're going to see a couple strong to maybe severe storms fire across this area here. That's across western Texas. Really, the main threat will be 60-mile-an-hour winds and 1-inch hail. I wouldn't rule out a isolated hailstone up to 1.5 inch in diameter, and I also wouldn't rule out a spin-up tornado as well. Really, that tornado risk is just, it's across this entire area, but it's low across this entire area. So just somebody in here has the risk for a brief spin-up tornado. It's not very high whatsoever. We might see a brief weak spin-up tornado somewhere in this region going into tomorrow. That could be down here closer to southwest Texas, or that might be a little bit closer to the Oklahoma-Texas border. I don't know. We'll just have to see when we go into tomorrow. And then going into Thursday, two main areas to watch going into Thursday. I'm going to watch right along the cold front, which is in this area in here. And then more importantly, I'm really going to watch the warm front back up in this area. So both areas have the risk for 60-mile-an-hour winds, 1-inch hail, and a spin-up tornado or two. The best risk for a tornado or two definitely appears to be in the warm front, right along that warm front in northern Arkansas, maybe even into central Arkansas here. Not the best ingredients, that's for sure, but just right along that front in here would be your best chance for a spin-up tornado or two, and that's about it. So tomorrow, 60-mile-an-hour winds, 1-inch hail, spin-up tornado or two, and then same goes for Thursday. So really today's your highest threat out of your 3-day sequence, if you call it that. Let's see here. Ah, you call them flags? That's weird. Flags. Haven't heard of that before. You learn something new every day. You said that's in aviation, though. I'm not huge on aviation, but I mean, that honestly, that does make sense, to be honest with you. Barbs, flags, both of them make sense to me. Feels like 5 p.m., but it's only 2. It's 4:41 over here. Oh, no, I'm not sold at all on the Thanksgiving risk. We know there's going to be a big system that rolls through either Thanksgiving Eve or on Thanksgiving. We'll just have to see how things pan out. So there's definitely going to be a lot of travel delays. I would definitely keep a very close eye on that. If you are, especially in the central U.S., especially if you are in this area in here, that seems to be the highest risk for travel delays going into Thanksgiving. And then we'll have to see if we get this big blast of cold air or not behind our system. Yeah, you can see that's going into Wednesday. Plenty of delays would be possible there. And then even some going into Thursday morning. And then even more going into Thanksgiving weekend. So definitely want to keep an eye on it. Central and southeastern U.S. Really anywhere, honestly, really anywhere in the central U.S. you want to keep an eye on this because it easily could shift north, south, east, west at any point. So there's not a lot of confidence in that. I saw people putting out Thanksgiving forecasts and even large media outlets putting out Thanksgiving forecasts. It is 10 days away. It is 10 days out. We can generally get the idea of our pattern, which is probably 2 big systems entering the U.S., maybe a risk for severe storms and a risk for snow and a risk for an Arctic blast. But where any of those things are is impossible to know. You can get a general idea of it, but you can see here, these are all your different scenarios. And I mean, there are so many different scenarios. So many different scenarios. Now, none of these are no delays. Somebody's going to be getting delays here on either Wednesday or Thursday. Somebody is. Who? We don't know, but it's a very active jet stream. It is indeed an active jet stream. This is the Euro. You can see the Euro has a full-fledged blizzard nor'easter across the northeastern U.S. going into Thanksgiving weekend here. This is Saturday and Sunday. Full-on nor'easter there. But that would actually be the weekend of Thanksgiving. Not really anything insane for Thanksgiving Day. You can see Thanksgiving Day here is actually relatively inactive across the U.S. You have some light showers on the Euro here, and a lot of this remains off the coastline and maybe an atmospheric river in the west. But really not anything too insane or big delays on Thanksgiving Day for the Euro. And then the GFS really is much of the same, so just a lot of a lot of uncertainties. Right now, it looks like it's going to be like the day before and the weekend. So, like Wednesday, like Thanksgiving Eve, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then maybe Thursday would be clear. Friday maybe would be clear. And then Saturday, Sunday, we have another system moving in. That's just taking a guess off of our ensembles in the GFS. So you can see here Tuesday, Wednesday, and then maybe a bit clearer Thursday, and then Friday, it starts to increase, at least on the GFS, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Just to show you how much inconsistency there is, though, between these runs. Big time inconsistencies. But notice, gracious. But notice how every single run has a system either entering or already in the US. So you have a system exiting and entering the central US here on this run. Next run, you have a system over the eastern US. Next run, eastern US, and a system entering the western US. Same ordeal there. So a lot of these show two separate systems. One over the US and one entering the US Thanksgiving night into Friday morning. But we don't want to pay attention to specifics. The biggest thing you're looking at is the consistency. How many ensembles have systems entering the US, and how many agree with each other, and what other deterministics agree with said scenarios. You're not looking at very specifics like, okay, what model runs have snow happening in Illinois? We're not looking at that. We're looking at how does the jet stream look on each one of these ensembles and models. And then once we get closer to the 5-day range, then we can start talking about, okay, what do each one of these have for Arkansas or Missouri in snow totals? Or in terms of severe weather. That's when you get closer to the 5-day range. And then when you get towards the 2 to 3 day range, that's when, you start to put out the forecasts and really start to nail down what could happen. And then of course, day 2, that's when you get all those delays starting to become realized. But hopefully there's no big issues, but it looks like, from what I can tell here, we're probably going to have a big system to track around Thanksgiving. It may not be on Thanksgiving Day, but it may be Tuesday, Wednesday, skip Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Imagine if we actually get that lucky. Imagine if we really get that lucky. This is Thanksgiving Day on this one. So maybe we could get lucky where a system is leaving the US on Thursday and one is entering the US on Thursday. And then the central US is just clear. Who knows? But just, if anybody's telling you what's going to happen on Thanksgiving, don't listen to them. I mean, we know it's going to be, at least from what I can tell here, it looks like it's going to be an active pattern around Thanksgiving, but nobody could tell you what's going to happen. I can't tell you if it's going to be clear or if it's going to be snowing or if it's going to be a chance for severe weather in Arkansas and Missouri on Thanksgiving Day. Slightly stronger storms starting to fire around Greenville in Missouri right now. Good news, all main 240 hour out models give me snow. Come back to that tomorrow, and I bet maybe 1 or 2 give you that. Because that's what happens 240 hours out. It's probably still going to look generally the same in terms of an active pattern, but I would anticipate the location of where that is probably going to shift. Is there a chance we get the 21Z HRRR in before 5? So, yeah, this storm is firing in a decent spot. We'll have to see if we get a lot more storms to fire around it. These kind of all merged into one cluster right now, which is a pretty good scenario for severe weather to occur. The problem is for storms when they fire separately, like this, for instance, where they fire more scattered like this, and they're close enough to impede on each other's environment, but not close enough to where they completely merge. Like, apparently these were close enough to where the west storm caught up with this more eastern storm. But yeah, I would definitely be weather aware today, especially if you live across the, I'll show you exactly where here. I would definitely be weather aware if you live across these areas in here. That's where our main risk for severe weather looks to be today. Storms are firing in this area and here. This is where they're all starting at. They should be more matured in this circled area. And then down here, it's kind of a 50-50 on if storms even get into this area. Yeah, really, like I said, right in here. HRRR really paints right in that area. Let me check. I'm curious if we have those other cam models rendering in now. I know the 12Zs are done. We have 18Z RFSA. See what that has. Let's see. So that's 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. This model is already dead wrong. It has a strong supercell already over like Marble Hill, so we already know that's incorrect. And then it somehow has supercells firing in eastern Arkansas tonight, too. I doubt that's going to happen. Some other 18Z models are rendering here. A little bit more accurate with the HTPO model here. So 4 p.m., 5 p.m. That just keeps it sloppy. I think that's probably a good possibility there. Oh, this one ain't rendered yet. Dang, that one's still stuck on 12Z. That one's old. So we'll see what the 21Z HRRR has to say. I mean, I'm not taking it seriously either way because you really just want to be, now casting it. So we're really using these two things right here. You're using your radar and your mesoanalysis. Those are really the two main things to use when storms fire. Models are kind of just like seeing if there's anything that agrees with the current conditions, and if it does, you can kind of get an idea of what may happen in the future. But really, you don't really want to use models. Even day of is still pretty risky. You really don't want to use them even day of. But like I said, even though I know you're not supposed to, and they're not very accurate day of, I'm still going to. Just, you got to take into consideration what the current observations are. That's a big thing. Comparing your model run, comparing how the model initiates current conditions. That's the biggest thing. Which the HRRR, as we've seen before, with many spring setups, is very garbage at doing that. It's already initiated incorrectly, so there you go. It's very poor at initiating correctly. Very curious to see if we get any more storms, because these are, this one's pretty discreet at the moment. But there's two separate updrafts, and you can even see that on velocity. the fact that there's two separate updrafts here. You've got an updraft in with this storm, obviously, and then an updraft back in here. So these are two separate storms still. They haven't completed a merge. Same with like this. You could kind of see on velocity there, clearly, two separate storms, two separate updrafts. So that should keep things more tame here. I'm curious to see if anything fires in Arkansas now. I wouldn't rule out an isolated severe storm if you do live in this area down in here. I would not rule out an isolated severe storm here over the next like 3-4 hours or so. But you're not in the main threat for severe weather. We still have a severe storm. Actually, looks like it expires here in 4 minutes. This storm has been off and on severe for a very long time. Hopefully it is done. But thankfully, that's only remained they just canceled that. So no longer severe. So it's remained mainly a low wind severe threat, 50-mile-an-hour winds, 1-inch hail. The biggest threat with it has really been very frequent lightning. That's back up there in central Indiana. Right near Martinsville in central Indiana. The only thing I'm really going to look at for the HRRR is to see if it still has that semi-discrete storm being a big threat. Also, completely forgot to show this. Our MCD that came out pretty much an hour ago at this point. So in that blue area, there's a 40% chance the Storm Prediction Center issues a likely severe thunderstorm watch. So if they do issue one, likely it will be a severe thunderstorm watch here sometime into the evening and night hours. And they do mention a severe storm risk, including supercells with hail and some, I want to highlight this word right here, some tornado risk possible this evening. But if you look closely here, I'll zoom in for you. There is a conditional strong tornado threat with this. They do have 100 to 130 mile per hour peak tornado intensity. That's actually 5% worthy tornado intensity there. You could see this kind of more tannish color, yellowish tannish color. That's typical for a marginal. Same with this one here. But this kind of more orangish, that we typically see with 5% tornado risks. Sometimes even with 10 hatched risks. So the big difference between a 5% and a 10 hatched risk, though, with this case, is the fact it's very, very, very conditional. So we could see a brief spin-up tornado or two, and there's a chance that one of them is strong. We're not looking at multiple tornadoes with one or two strong. We're looking at a spin-up tornado or two, possibly one of those spin-ups being strong. But the main threat you can see here is about 55 to 70 mile an hour winds and then 1 to 1.75 inch hail. And there's their whole discussion. You could read this if you want to at spc.noaa.gov. It's on their mesoscale discussion page. You can see conditions will continue to be monitored closely should a watch issuance be needed. Let's see here. Hail would be possible given the stronger rotating updrafts at 7 to 7.5 kilometer mid-level lapse rates. Honestly, I think they're moving out of that environment though, right? Where the heck did they get that from? Am I crazy? I'm not sure where they got 7 to 7.5 mid-level lapse rates from. Interesting. Maybe they're using the HRRR. Maybe they're using the HRRR simulated lapse rates for tonight or something. But no, I wouldn't expect lapse rates go down as the sun sets if that's not obvious enough. So I'm pretty surprised they said 7 to 7.5 there because it looks like we're closer to 6 to 6.5. I don't feel like that's a typo, but you never know. Because 7 to 7.5 mid-level lapse rates, that would be sufficient for large hail. But we're actually closer in... I mean, I don't have to say my opinion. I could show you right here. This green line here is 6. And this green line right here is 6.5. So clearly they are in the 6 to 6.5 lapse rates area right now. If it was 7 to 7.5, you'd see this yellow and this yellow. It would be down here, but it's not. So, hold on. I did see Dexter, Missouri. Let's see where that is. I don't see it right off the bat, so I'll look it up. Oh, yeah, I'm just blind. So right now, it looks like this storm might barely stay to their north, but in about an hour or so, they're likely going to get some rain and some thunder. But the worst of this storm should stay barely off to their north. It looks like it's moving like this. So they'll probably hear some thunder and maybe get some light to moderate rain, depending on how much this storm grows over the next hour. Tour possible in Arizona. What? Probably the best rotation you're going to see all day. We might get better rotation tonight in Southwest Kentucky, depending if we get a discrete storm, but that might be the best rotation you see for the next few hours anywhere in the U.S. Random tour possible severe out there in Arizona. Yeah, that happens every now and then in Arizona, honestly. Pretty common to see. All right, let's go back to the HRRR. Again, we're looking at this really just for fun, not necessarily to take it any bit seriously. It does have our one discrete storm still. But, yeah, I mean, that comes from our cluster here. I don't know. I would watch closely, though, because that's very much a possibility. So that's 7 o'clock, so that means this is 6 and then 5. See, what I'm doing here is I'm comparing the radar to what this looks like, and I'm realizing, yeah, this don't look like anything than what we're actually dealing with here. So I'd keep an eye on this storm. It could be a long track storm that produces a tornado or two, maybe even a strong one, 1 to 2 inch hail and 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, depending on if it can mature, which I think it will be able to. I think it will be able to as long as no other storms fire around it. And it's also moving into a better environment, so I would keep an eye on that. But it's probably just going to be like 1 or 2 storms that end up being severe in this area today. But yeah, if you guys haven't already, also make sure you hit that like button on the stream. It really helps to spread this stream and channel out to the YouTube algorithm. And if you're new, consider hitting that subscribe button with the notification bell set to all. It's greatly appreciated. I haven't been that active on YouTube and in the last 2 weeks. And honestly, I expect it to stay that way because it is winter. So I really I haven't had much motivation to do YouTube, to be honest with you. I really haven't. So I kind of laid off on all the content and there really wasn't much happening. The more stuff that happens, typically the more motivated I am to talk about it. It's very difficult for me to be motivated to talk about cold air. It really is. Something like this, severe weather, that's why I'm typically a lot more active in tornado season. I can really talk about severe weather for hours, but when it comes to cold air, I'm like, okay, it's going to be cold. That's about it. And even snow isn't that interesting to me because there's only so many times I can reiterate you're going to see snow. With severe weather, it's changing so frequently because storms do so much different. They do so many different things than what you're anticipating. They can fire more clustered. They can fire more discrete. Your environment can be substantially different than modeled. Whereas with snow, I mean, I know snow can fall differently, but still, it's just not fun. Not fun to me, so... I mean, geez, I did name the channel after tornadoes, so it's pretty obvious. And that's going to be the main thing I'd talk about. Hey, Kaylee, at least you caught your kid doing that, right? Because what if you just didn't? Be brushing your teeth with a toilet toothbrush. Nope. Nope. At least you caught him. That is crazy. Poor Kaylee. Yeah, so again, just keep an eye out today, especially if you're in front of this storm. Just keep an eye on this. Generally watching this area in here. So if you are in that area, just keep an eye on it. You can use this software. This is weatherwise.app. If someone wants to do the command in code, if we have any mods in chat, you could do the radar code. So you could just use this software for free. Everything I'm using is still for free. I haven't upgraded, believe it or not. I'm probably gonna end up upgrading in tornado season. I would assume, unless Radar Omega really ups their software here. I don't see a reason to keep going with using Radar Omega. Benton, Kentucky. I know that's somewhere around here. Because I know you're a frequent viewer. Yeah. Yeah, I would watch out in Benton, Kentucky. I'd keep a close eye on it. Now, it's still about, like, maybe 3 hours from you here, so... yeah, that's where it is right now. So as of 5 p.m., it's generally in this area. So 6 p.m., it's probably going to be close to, like, down in here. And then 7 p.m. down in here. And then 8 p.m. down in here. Assuming it keeps moving at generally the same trajectory and same speed. So 8 p.m. Eastern is when it should be close to Benton. That's 7 p.m. local. So that's about 3 hours. Let's take and actually, we're about to get another mesoanalysis, right? Yeah, we should get a 22Z mesoanalysis. We'll stay live for that. That's your lower level lapse rates. That was a jump scare. I thought the mid levels just got a lot stronger right there. Bloomington, Indiana. You're good. Worst is definitely over. The worst was about an hour ago, right about an hour ago. Yeah, about 30 minutes ago. A lot of lightning with that storm that's already passed through. Now that's over here near Columbus, moving to the east. So anyone in front of that, the main threat is like half-inch hail, 20-mile-an-hour winds, and very frequent lightning and very heavy rain. Lightning and probably rain is the main threat with that. Do see some blues starting to sneak in here. It means we could start seeing some small hail falling with this storm. How tall are we on Echo Tops here? Go over to GR2 and check Echo Tops. We're right about just under 40,000 feet, so pretty tall. Pretty tall. Might be a little upper level mezzo starting to form on that. It's right in the clear slot though, so I wouldn't bet on that doing anything anytime soon. I also want to see if that southeast trajectory continues. You can see on the last few frames moving due east. Now this half of the storm right here has kind of started to move over the last couple frames more to the southeast. So it was moving like this, and now it's starting to take more of that southeasterly trajectory. The main reason for that is probably something to do with this guy. This guy could also have changed in trajectory, resulting in this one changing. It had to be something to do with the cell merger. That's probably the main reason for it changing in its trajectory there. Still relatively on the weaker side, though. Let's see here. Go check some chasers. Yeah. So there's one chaser who's close to the storm, one who's far, and then one who's not even close. Let's see if we got that new meso analysis here. We do. Hot spot right on that 2000 cape, right with that storm. Oof. Big oof on that lower level wind shear, that's for sure. Only 110. Almost sufficient. It's right around that sufficient, but definitely a few little things here. You got a dry nose right there with some dry air. Definitely still a problem. You've got maybe a little bit of a capping inversion, believe it or not, about the 750 millibar. Still have good lower level lapse rates, and then you start to really get to poor lower level or poor mid levels. So your lower level lapse rates are really good, but then your mid levels are just really poor. That should reflect in this too. Yeah, only 6.6 0 to 3 kilometer SRH 0 to 3 kilometer lapse rates. But your main lower level, your 0 to 1 is probably closer to like 7, 7.5. Your 0 to 3 is obviously 6.6. Surface observation still sufficient. Lower level jets obviously still there, 25 to 35 knots. Bulk shear still sufficient for upscale growth. So really, I think the main limit, there's a few limiting factors here. The lower level wind shear, the multiple areas of dry air, and the lower level lapse rates. So there's quite a bit working against this storm for it to be intensifying quickly, which is why it's kind of just maintaining this blob right now. You're not seeing any type of rapid intensification per se with this. It's just a blob of heavy rain, maybe very small hail, maybe a bit of gusty winds. Nothing too over the top. I haven't looked at the death toll for Melissa yet. I haven't looked at an updated one in a while. Let me see. Yeah, the last main update that I had here that I am comfortable saying is over 103 fatalities. That's been confirmed. At least 29 missing. That's the information I'm comfortable to give you that seems to be official. Any other numbers? There's probably a bunch more numbers out there, but that's the information that I'm comfortable to give you. Let me see here. I'll be curious to see how this evolves. I really don't think it's going to do much until like 2 or so hours from now when that lower level shear really increases. It's a very meh setup. It's really a very meh setup. Not impressed. Also with the veering here, you can see that veering still hasn't improved. Still hasn't improved at all. And still very weak wind speeds in the lower levels. So until that improves, which it probably won't until this gets into southwest Kentucky, where your veering looks a little bit better, those winds are a lot stronger, your hodograph's a lot better. I really don't expect much of a severe threat from this. Low wind severe threat over the next 2 hours, and then that may gradually increase after 7 Eastern. But yeah, that's about all I want to talk about. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. This is not something I'm going to stay here for 2 to 3 hours to cover. It's one, maybe worst case scenario, 2 storms. So, we'll probably end up with a couple of severes and maybe a tornado warning or 2. It just depends on how this storm evolves. You can see the one behind it's not very healthy, so it's going to be this leading storm here, which is very messy. Give me just a moment. Okay. It's definitely rotating. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't... It can't be rotating that much. It can't be rotating much at all, really. It doesn't really seem like it's going to be doing much. The key is it's elevated. It shouldn't be. I want to get a quick tweet out. Alrighty. 43,000 foot echo top. That is pretty tall, but I mean, It's still very sloppy. Are you sure it's a wall cloud? You said just based off of somebody's chat on a camera, right? The thing is, I ain't gonna take somebody's word for it, honestly, unless it was the chaser himself, and then I will. I mean, I do see a mezzo. There is definitely a mezzo with it. But that's not a wall cloud. There's no clear lowering. Where is this at? So this is looking barely west. Yeah, so there's a little not lowering. There's a mezzo that's trying to form in here. Yeah, that is rotating. Yeah, that's definitely rotating. Yeah, this storm's definitely poses an all hazards threat. In the short term, in the next 2 hours, it's not that high. But once this gets to about the border of Kentucky, Missouri here, in about an hour and a half, that's when it should strengthen further. Sorry, I'm looking at this this mezzo. So it is definitely, it's not elevated because the storm's not it's not elevated. It's more surface based right now. The thing is, it's just not strong enough rotation to get anything to the ground or anything lowering, any like lowering to it. It's just a mezzo. It's not very far up into the atmosphere to the point where it's elevated, and it's not very low to the point where it's a wall cloud. There's no clear wall cloud developed under the mezzo, so it's just a broad, small area of rotation. It should be surface based. There's no reason why it shouldn't be surface based. So I'm looking at it right now through Radar Mega Camera. I can tell you there's no wall cloud. I've seen like 3 or 4 wall clouds before, which isn't as much as other people, but I can tell you there's no wall cloud on this. Clearly, very, very visibly no wall cloud. And these storms will be more low precipitation too. So chasers will have a pretty good pretty good time with cloud spotting. Should be able to see a lot of structure details. There's a mezzo but no wall cloud, two different things. There can be an area of rotation without a wall cloud. A wall cloud is a lowering within a mesocyclone. So say, how can I do this? This might be a good way to put it here. Okay, so there's your updraft. Very nice tilt to it too. That's because of the wind shear. So that's what's giving it a good look. Your mezzo's right about in here, right about where my cursor is. So pretend this is all rotating right in here, right? You've got an area of rotation right in here. And in order for there to be a tornado, you need to obviously have a wall cloud. So that would be your area of broad, weak rotation. And then a wall cloud would form under that and it would be an area of smaller, stronger rotation. And that gives it that lowering look under the meso. And then from that wall cloud, that's where you get your funnel cloud. And then eventually you get a tornado that touches all the way down. So that's, you got to get your meso is just a large, weak area of spin in this case. And then a wall cloud would be a stronger area of concentrated spin. And then, like I said, you get your funnel cloud and then your tornado. A meso does not mean a tornado is imminent, nor does a wall cloud. Now, if you have a very rapidly rotating wall cloud that even doesn't have a funnel, then yeah, that could be imminent. Or if it's a wall cloud with a funnel, that is also imminent. But just because there's a wall cloud doesn't mean a tornado is necessarily imminent. Just because there's a meso doesn't mean a tornado is imminent. Just because there's an area of rotation doesn't mean a tornado is imminent. All 4 out of the 4 wall clouds I've seen, only one of them had a tornado warning. That was actually for an imminent area of rotation, and that one actually did have a really good wall cloud to it. I think people forget that there's so many storms that rotate. And out of the hundreds, actually, out of the thousands of storms that rotate in the U.S. every year, there's only a handful that are actually good enough in a given month to produce tornadoes. I don't know how many tornadoes we've had. I know we have like over 1,000 like reports here. How many tornado reports do we have this year? Let's see. I know in the peak of tornado season, it looks like we had, let's see here. We had for tornado season, for Maine tornado season, we had about 730 for the peak of tornado season. And then we had an additional like 400 to 500 additional reports after May. But all right, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. So again, just make sure you're weather aware, especially if you are in front of these 2 storms here. So just watch this area closely. You could do so in the WeatherWise app, weatherwise.app. And I will see you guys eventually. I ain't gonna make no promises because I just don't know. I don't know when. So, if things really pick up exponentially, I may hop on again, but I'm not going to make any promises because I have stuff I got to do tonight. So that's why I hopped on very early before things really started getting going. If things get really bad, I'm sure there will be other people who hop on, and I highly encourage you to go watch them as well, especially if you trust them. Just make sure that they're trusted sources. And yeah, that's it for this live stream. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Mods for Bond Chat. Thank you, everyone, for being here. On your way out, if you haven't already, hit that like button, share the channel and the stream with your family, friends, social media, and subscribe if you are new. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning in once again, and I will see you guys sometime in the future. Like I said, no promises. So, yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay safe. Watch the severe weather and the snowfall. Music's going to be a bit short because I yapped a little bit too long. Goodbye. There's your severe thunderstorm watch. So in the background here, hold on, I'm going to show you. That pink area in the background, we have a severe thunderstorm watch. The probability is only a 25, so very low chance for a tornado. Stay safe, watch for your weather, and I'll see you guys in the next one that I do. Goodbye.